What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix for Week 11 of the 2021 CFL season. I'm Ryan Coop here with your running back preview this time around. If you missed it, go back, check out the quarterback preview I've already done, and stay tuned later today. I'll have your wide receivers and your defense as well, and depth chart updates out on Friday and Saturday to get you all set for setting your lineups for Week 11 of CFL Fantasy. Let's take a look at the running back options for this week. Only 3 games on the schedule, so only 6 starters and potentially a couple backups or other options to choose from. Let's start off with the top of the chart here price-wise, and that's Andrew Harris at $11,302. Last week, he finally gave you full value of 2.5 points per $1,000 he spent when he put up the big 30.4 week against Edmonton. He had 2 touchdowns, I believe, in that game, 150 rushing yards. It was by far his best game of the season, and the type of game we had come to expect from Andrew Harris. He had kind of a quiet, steady production coming into that game, but the big one, he faces Edmonton again this week, which makes him a tempting play perhaps, but the price tag is way too high for me. If you're looking to get 2.5 per $1,000, you're looking at 28.3 points from him. I think that's a stretch to put up 150 yards and 2 touchdowns every game, especially with the Bombers having so many options on offense through the passing game as well, and then getting near the goal line with Sean McGuire at being able to punch it in for the score there. So I still don't like taking Harris in fantasy. I think there's better ways you can spend your money to get you the full value, because if he's not having that as amazing of a week as last week, and he's only doing what he did, in every other week, where since it's been 16.6 points, I believe, is his highest total on the year. Besides that, last week, you're not getting your value for Harris. I'm also saying stay away from James Wilder Jr. Typically this season, he has been in the range of I've put him at least a yellow light, maybe, and in a lot of cases a green light option. But likewise, his salary is really high. You want 23.8 points out of him. He's averaged 16 on the year, and in his last couple of games, he did, to be fair, have a 25.1 point day against the Bombers back in week number 7. But other than that, in his last 4 games, it's been 9.4, that 25.1, 14.9, and 6.6. So he's had a couple days there where he gave you even less than 1 point per $1,000. Edmonton's reeling right now. I don't know what's going on with that Elks team. They do not seem to be on the same page at all. And I think the Bombers, against running backs have come back down quite a bit, the totals they give up. They were the worst team against running backs earlier in the season. But now they're falling back in the range, similar range to a lot of these other teams. And I think it's by a byproduct of having Steven Richardson back on the defensive line and Kyrie Wilson back at linebacker has made a world of a difference there. So I'm saying stay away from James Wilder Jr. at such an expensive salary. William Stanback at $8,974. Missed last game against Ottawa. They play Ottawa again this week. He was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, which seems promising that he will get back in the lineup this week. We'll need to check the depth charts, of course, to make sure of that. But I'm a little cautious on him just because we've seen from Stanback, throughout this season, much like I was talking about with Andrew Harris, he had one big 25.4 point game against Toronto back in week number 8. And other than that, his highest total on the year has been 15.8 points. So he gets a lot of rushing yards always, but he does not get full usage through the air and does not really pick up touchdowns too often, it seems, for Montreal. So I like the matchup with Ottawa. They gave up a lot of yards to Cameron Artis-Payne in a big week last week, and Stanback is certainly one of the top running backs in the league. So I do like that option, but I need to see consistent production from him, and if he's not getting the touchdown, I think it's hard for him to hit a 22-point week. Kadeem Carey's an interesting one at $7,023. He seems to be up and down this season. It's hard to make of Kadeem Carey. Earlier in this year, he seemed like he was becoming a promising fantasy option. 22.1, 19.2, were his totals in back-to-back weeks in week 3 and 4. And then it was a 12.7, and then it dropped off to just 4.5, 2.6, and 10.9. So 4 games in the middle there, not getting what you were looking for out of him. Then last week against Saskatchewan, he put up a big 22.8 performance, was really kind of carrying that offense, no pun intended, and big game there. I'm cautious on him. You're looking at 17.6 points. BC's defense does give up a bit of a higher total to running back, 17.1. I think carry oftentimes is a little touchdown dependent, though, and it depends whether that Calgary offense is moving the ball efficiently. I think their passing game might struggle a bit against BC's defense, which either A is going to open up running lanes for carry, or B is going to mean they're not going to get close enough to the end zone for him to punch it in for a touchdown, which I think will hurt his totals there. So I'm in the middle on carry this week. I could see it being a disappointment, but I could see him having another good day, especially if he gets involved in the passing game like he did last week. Timothy Flanders in Ottawa. Ottawa played 2 games last week, and Flanders played in the first one and had a disappointing 2.9 points and was out of the lineup for the second one. I'm not 100% sure on the reasoning. Last week, I assumed it was due to injury, or perhaps it was just fatigue. But on the injury report so far this week, he was listed there as healthy scratch. So we need to stay tuned again for the depth charts to figure out whether it's going to be Flanders or DeLance Turner in at running back this week. If it is Flanders, I'm in the middle on that one as well. I'm cautious there. He had 3 straight games of really solid performances of 13.7, 10.2, and 14.1. But then last time against Toronto, 2.9, and disappointing day there, and perhaps Ottawa will be looking either to replace him with DeLance Turner as the starter, or maybe they work both of them in there in a dual back system. Montreal, one of the better teams in the league against running backs this season. So I say cautious on Flanders. The price is cheaper. 12.6 isn't too high of a total to try to hit, especially if he can get a touchdown or get a catch or two in there. I think that's possible, but I'm not sold on him being a lock this week. I'll talk about Shaq Cooper and James Butler at the same time. Both BC running backs coming in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. Stay away from either of them. Frankly, BC doesn't run the ball. Last game against the Bombers, I believe that was their last game before the bye. Yes, it was. They just ran the ball, I think, 4 or 5 times only that entire game. These guys do not get the workload to be worth putting in your fantasy lineup. Sure, Cooper did have that one game where he put up 16.7 against Saskatchewan because he got like 7 catches, but even that seems out of the ordinary there. So unless they get in for like a small touch, like 2 touchdowns or a touchdown and a couple carries, maybe they pull off the totals there, but it just ain't worth it. I mean, Shaq Cooper, I think, has had 0 or negative rushing yards in the past 2 games on like 2 or 3 carries only. So do not risk putting them in their lineup. Wait till they have the breakout game and start getting usage. I know it's tempting to jump on those and try to kind of beat everybody else to them, but through 10 weeks of the year, I think you got to just sit and wait for them to consistently do it before you risk it at this point with either of those options. Cameron Artis-Payne from Montreal, I really like as an option this week if he is the starter. That is the big asterisk on there. If Stanback's in, I don't think Artis-Payne is a good play. If Artis-Payne gets the start, $5,000, you're looking for 12.5 points out of him. And last week he put up the big 24.9 performance against Ottawa. He seemed really shifty. They leaned on him really heavily to the level that we normally see them lean on William Stanback. And that's not bad for a backup running back to be able to come in and get that level of usage. It was a big day for him. I don't know if I expect him to really hit that total once again this week, but I think at a $5,000 salary, 12.5 is a perfectly reasonable total for him to hit. Anthony Coombs, the running back that's not a running back, he slots in at slot back for the Red Blacks. $4,599. He's averaging just 6.3 points on the season. He seems to be, I always think of him as a tempting option just because, receivers, points per reception. If he's actually one of the go-to receivers in the starting lineup, then he should have no problem hitting 11.5. But he, in 3 of his last 4 games, has hit 3.4, 5.1, and 1.8. He had an 11-point game there in the middle. But more often than not, he seems to get minimal usage, and I think there's other good plays around the same price point potentially this week instead of Anthony Coombs. Unless Turner and Artis Payne don't play this week and you really need a cheaper running back option, then I would say he's probably the best one available to you. I talked about James Butler already, and then Delance Turner. If he does start for Ottawa, I like him at $4,000. 11.6 points last game for him in his first start against Montreal. I thought he looked pretty good and brought a bit of life to that Ottawa running game. You need just 10 points out of him. I like that a little bit more than Flanders at a $5,000 price against Montreal this week as well. Fresh legs in there perhaps for Ottawa with Delance Turner. So those are your options at running back for this week. The main ones there. Obviously, there's some other options with return guys like Terry Williams or Chris Rainey potentially, or there's Ante Milanovic-Litre. I don't really like any of those options. None of them produce steadily on any given week. These are the main ones to consider, and a lot of them I think are not worth consideration this week. Again, I'm hoping, for fantasy-wise, that maybe Artis Payne or Turner gets the start, so you can go for a cheap running back option there. But other than that, there's some potential interesting plays in Stanback or Kadeem Carey or Timothy Flanders, and then I'm, barring need and cap space, probably staying away from any of the other options. So that's how I see the running backs playing out this week. If you missed it, go back, check out the quarterback preview I have out already, and stay tuned for wide receivers and defense later today. Depth chart updates out on Friday and Saturday. Do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you liked, what you didn't. If you have any fantasy questions, put them in the comments section or tweet them at me at CooperTrooper42. A link's in the video description. And if you want to play CFL Fantasy alongside myself and other viewers, check out a link in the description to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix official group over on the CFL Fantasy site. You can play alongside myself and other viewers this week and every week throughout the 2021 CFL season. As always, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.